Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire, while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires with Fireman Rob. I have a great guest today. You know, he's only been on 50 plus podiums in triathlon. He last year, which will probably be hopefully the next time we'll see at Kona, he'll be on the first place. He got second place. He's been one of the top American triathletes in long course for a long time. Tim O'Donnell, great to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks, Rob. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Now, you are being one of the top Americans. That's such a big honor because it is a tough field when you get to Kona, and it's a lot of Europeans, it's a lot of Australians. What does it mean to be that top American when you go to the World Championships?
Well, it's definitely an honor, but it isn't necessarily the goal. I'm always trying to be the top, just the top guy, period. But I'm a veteran and obviously a very patriotic guy, and taking home that title is definitely a feather in the cap every year.
I love the way that you put that, because yes, nobody wants to be on that second step. They always want to be on the first step. But you've been there a lot of times, and like going back in time, we go back to really you started out as a swimmer.
Yeah, I started swimming when I was 5 years old and swam all the way through college, went to the Naval Academy, and it was really my older brother Thomas that kind of made me convert. He was on the tri-club team at the academy. I swam my first 2 years on the varsity team at Navy, and then kind of juggled triathlon and swimming those first 2 years. I finally decided that, I really wanted to take triathlon seriously. I needed to train properly and focus properly on it.
What was the difference? What was the difference that you saw in triathlon that you didn't see in swimming?
I think I felt with swimming I had plateaued a little bit. I was actually I had my best swims at the end of my sophomore year, and the coaches were really surprised to see me go. I really kind of took. I was definitely the guy that overtrained and trained way too hard and never rested. And so during like the regular season, I wasn't much. I didn't have much worth. And then when I finally tapered at the end of the year, the coaches were like, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" So I think they were excited to see me those next 2 years. But I just felt like, well, I could get faster. I didn't think I was going to, make Olympic trials or make the Olympics. And I just really honestly got intrigued by triathlon and how it challenged me in so many different ways beyond what I experienced in the pool.
Now, going through the Naval Academy, there's so many other things that you had to deal with along with athletics. I mean, a lot of people don't understand how stressful the Naval Academy is, because you are literally engulfed in becoming an officer for the Navy for those 4 years, and then you have an enlistment period after. How did you juggle between the athletics side and in essence, the Naval Academy side?
It definitely was a hard balance, Rob. Like you said, you have the athletics, and then of course you have your schoolwork. And I was naval architect and ocean engineering major. So, I'm trying to get a degree in engineering. And then on top of that, you have all of your military commitment. It's a lot. You have formation a couple times a day and mandatory lectures and drill practice and parades and just so much stuff, really, really helped me with my time management and my, and my priorities really is what it came down to. I definitely did not, when I was able to go out and drink, party, it wasn't a priority for me. I was focused on training and I really did. I just trained, studied, and tried to sleep whenever I could.
And when you went through the Naval Academy, the discipline that gave you, was that something that added on to what you already had for training? Because it sounded like you were kind of at that point of you had that dedication, that discipline, but did that going through the military provide you any more structure into how you become such a great triathlete?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a mix. I think enjoying that structure and that discipline is part of the reason why I ended up at the academy, but it definitely kind of strengthened all of that. Yeah. And it I'm just thinking back to the days when I was trying to balance swimming and triathlon and all the academy stuff, Robin.
Oh,
I
jeez.
remember the swim coach didn't know that I was on the triathlon club team, and I
Oh, are you
had to
kidding?
and I had to do, because he would have killed me. He would probably kick me out this. And I had to do one race in the fall to stay on the club tri team. I ended up there was a race, I think somewhere down south, maybe one of the Carolinas, and I had to swim practice. I had to go to practice on Saturday morning, so I probably did 8 or 10K. And then the
Jeez.
officer rep for the triathlon club team was waiting outside of the pool with my bike and gear in his car. He drove me to the airport. I met the tri team on Saturday afternoon, registered, hopped, raced Sunday morning, and then got on a plane, and then was, in the pool at 5:30 or whatever on Monday morning with the team.
Oh my
And
God.
the swim coach was none the wiser. But it
And that
was
doesn't even take into account all the other things that you, I
right.
mean,
Right.
muster and oh my God,
Oh
classes.
yeah, you had to get creative. We had to try to sneak out of formation or something and try to hit and skip lunch and go to the pool during lunch to try to get a workout in. You had to get a little creative.
So I have to ask, were you a push-up and a rucksack run champion because of all the things that you did?
Oh man, I actually so I went to dive school for I had explosive ordnance disposal special operations. The community I had service selected, and
Oh,
I
jeez.
was the worst at pull-ups, Rob. I'm 6 feet tall. My wingspan's about 6'6". And when I was swimming, I had probably another 20 pounds on me. That's a long lever to pull up a bar, you know?
Oh, that's ridiculous.
So
That's
I would,
ridiculous.
yeah, I think on the PT, my run by the end of my senior year, I can max out the push-ups and sit-ups, and always get a little extra bonus points for a fast run. But
Right.
yeah, when it came to the pull-up bar, I ran away as fast as I
Just
could.
just hanging there. What do you have some stories from, did you, when you're in the military, you had service afterwards, and then you actually transitioned from being in the Navy to being a triathlete. What was that like? Because that's not really a normal transition.
It was hard, and I mean, in some ways, I was lucky because I came out of the academy. My older brother Thomas, who I mentioned earlier, had brought me into the folds of triathlon. And by the way, he made me. He literally forced me to try out for the triathlon. So I was a freshman at the academy, and he was a senior. And if anybody's familiar with any of the service academies, you know that the
Oh yeah.
freshmen you're just scum of the earth, right? Like
Oh yeah.
the upper class tell you to jump, and you say how high, or sir, how high, sir,
Exactly.
So he had forced me to try out for the triathlon team. Yeah, it was. Sorry, I'm losing what we're talking about, but
I can only imagine because we were talking about the transition from you
right,
going from Navy to being a pro triathlete, and I can imagine it was not an easy transition, or it was not
right.
something where you could look to somebody else and go, "Hey, how'd you do that?"
Yeah, well, that's so. Yeah, you good. Thanks for bringing me back, Rob. I haven't had enough coffee today, but
Yeah, I'm still going after mine.
well, yeah. So I was bringing my brother in because he's still in the Navy. He's just promoted to captain. He's going to be, he's a big deal. Like he's was the submarine commander, but he always jokes that I had like the best Navy career he's ever heard of because I went to dive school. I went to my command in San Diego, and then they put me on temporary active duty orders to the Olympic Training Center through the World
Oh,
Class
that's right.
Athlete Program to try to make the Olympics. So those last couple of years in the Navy, I was training. I was doing short course racing. Went to Olympic trials. Missed the team, and then I was left with this decision at the end of 2008 when my commitment was up, whether I stay and do the job I had originally intended to do, or I go chase this dream. And it was really
Right.
hard for me because I internally it was a struggle for me because I felt like I'd come into the Navy to do one thing, and through no fault of my own, just the way my life unfolded, I ended up doing this other thing that was equally unbelievable in triathlon, right? But
Right.
I still had this weight on my shoulders that I should maybe go and try to do, kind of that special ops stuff that I was planning on doing. But my boss, luckily, when he was young, was a professional triathlete.
Are you kidding?
No, yeah, like way back in the early days, he's like,
The
he had
speedos and the cool glasses.
exactly. Down tube shifting, maybe, I don't know.
Exactly.
But he was like, Tim, you're behind your year group. It's really going to be hard for you to progress your Navy career. You have this awesome gift. You should really go pursue it, and he believed that I could do something great in the sport. And, he reminded me that, hey, you didn't write your orders to everything you've done here. You've done what we've asked, and you should, hold your head up high and go chase that dream. Kind of with his blessing, I said, all right, let's do it. And then I moved into the world of triathlon.
Moved is a delicate word that you put, because you kind of started on fire. I mean, it's moving when you go in and you're just a part of the thing. I mean, you were named USAT's non-drafting triathlete of the year for 09, 2010 and 2015, the ITU long distance world champion in 2009. That's not really just easing your way in there, Tim.
Well, luckily I was getting the work done. I was a horrible IT racer. That's what it comes down to. I could swim and I could bike with the best of them. Hamburg ITU World Championships, Hamburg, I think it might have been 07. I was solo off the front for half the race. But when it came down to the run, I was just a slug. But behind the scenes, I was working on that run. It just, and I think a lot of people will see this, and you just have to have patience. But I was seeing my progression in my training, but it hadn't translated yet into my racing. And a lot of people, will get frustrated and give up. But I had faith in myself. I believed in myself. And when I got out of the Navy, I kind of decided to bet on myself. And I knew that long course racing, half Ironmans and eventually full Ironmans, was going to be where I would succeed. So yeah, in 09, I just took off. And I think a lot of that comes down to, I said, all right, well, it's time to put your money where your mouth is, and let's do this. You have this much money saved up for when you're in the Navy. You can maybe race for 18 months, figure it out. And if not, you got to go get a job. Right. So I think I would really put my, my feet on, under the fire a little bit, and it paid off. And it was, those first couple races in 09 were a little rocky. What was it? It was New Orleans, 70.3 New Orleans. I lost all my nutrition at the very start of the bike, and I just had this horrible ride. Yeah. I got off the bike.
Except
way
I don't go as
behind
fast as
everybody.
you. Oh, jeez.
We all had, it's problem solving out there, right? But I was ready to give up. I'm like, this isn't for me. I should just go do something else. And then I said to myself, okay, well, you know what? You may be out of this race, but you can still take something away. Or what can we do today that's going to make you a better athlete? And I said, all right, let's just try to have the best run I can have. And like I said, the run is where I had struggled. So I said, all right, forget about, where you're at. Forget about everything. Just run as fast as you can. And I ended up having the fastest run split of the day and ran myself onto the podium. And that gave me a lot of confidence. And I'm like, okay, maybe we can do this. And then, 2 races later, I turned around and broke Craig Alexander's course record at St. Croix 70.3. And I had my first 70.3 victory ever. And once I did that, I really, really started to believe in myself. And that's when everything just came together.
What does that feel like? Because I think that's one of the big things that a lot of people have hurdles of when they're going for something that's, that they're just betting on themselves because they don't have somebody else that's saying, hey, you'll win one of these. And you end up third that first time. What did it take in you to be able to find that? Because, I mean, you got 2 course records that in a few of your next races, Calgary and St. Croix. What does it take to believe in yourself that much to be able to do something that somebody else, you don't have any other support to be able to get there?
Yeah. It really takes a leap of faith, I think. And determination. It's crazy because my parents, I love my parents to death. They have been a massive part of my success in every part of my life, my work ethic, how I operate as a person, and, respect for other individuals. And they were just worried about me, right? They're like, this is crazy. You're leaving, you have full medical benefits, a guaranteed job, and
salary, all that stuff.
So much stuff, right? Going for you. And you're giving it up. At the time I had no sponsors. I had zero income from triathlon. It was, I was just figuring it out. Even they were like, this is crazy, but it just takes that leap of faith. And honestly, I say that, I say bet on yourself, take a leap of faith in yourself, but you have to be honest with yourself at the same time and know this is this is something you truly can do, right? You have to fish in the right pond.
Right.
And
Right.
with swimming, if I'd done that with swimming, it would have turned out horribly because I wasn't in the right pond. If I had tried to do that with the ITU, it would have turned out horribly because I wasn't in the right pond. But deep down, I knew that long course triathlon racing was where I should be fishing, right? So,
Right.
I just was buying time until I could get out to that old watering hole of long course triathlon and start casting the line.
I love the way that you put that because it is true. It's like so many people have these aspirations and dreams, and it's having that tactical understanding like, yeah, this is something that I can get to. I've never been there before, but I can get to that. That's that's some great advice right there.
Yeah, and I think you can't be afraid to pivot either, Rob, right? Like,
Right.
a lot of people
Yep.
might have been like, I think I could have made the Olympic team in 2012. I mean, my running in 09 and 2010 was, it was amazing. I was still did a couple IT races. I was on the podium at the Pan Am Champs and at the US Nationals. So in some ways it takes a little guts to pivot because
Right.
that you need to go to the right place where you truly can be successful. And I wanted to win races. I wanted to win Kona particularly.
Right.
And, I just didn't want to participate. Even if it's the Olympics, I just didn't want to go to participate.
And that's hard when you're not making any money. I mean, I don't think a lot of people understand how hard you triathletes work to be able to make it a livelihood.
Yeah, I joke that when it comes to how much training and effort goes into particular sports, there's no worse ROI than professional triathlon. Horrible ROI, Rob. But if you love it, you love it. What are you going to do?
That's so true. That's so true. That's so true. And it's, and I think that's why I love triathletes so much is that the passion behind it has to be so strong because of that time investment, because of that financial investment, and because of that, like you were saying before, that unknown. And there's a lot of those things that go into these pro triathletes that people look and go, oh yeah, they're fast. It's like, no, but they also have to be resourceful.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. We don't have support networks that like a pro cycling team would have or a NASCAR driver would have. You're really on your own to figure it out.
So now actually going into something else is the Professional Triathlon Organization that you are, I believe, the president of. Tell me more about that because you guys formed that to actually help to build pro triathletes and help to build the sport of triathlon.
Yeah, the Professional Triathletes Organization started out actually in 2014 at a race in Bahrain. All the athletes kind of got together and we're trying to figure out how we could work together. And that was originally called the PTU, Pro Triathlon Union. And that sort of fizzled because, we're all used to fending for ourselves
Right.
and it's hard to bring everybody together without a strong business plan, really. And that's where Charles Adamo, who is kind of the chairman of the PTO and leading this charge, he's been leading this charge since 2015, by the way, behind the scenes. That's where he came up with this plan like, all right, well, you guys, if you come together and have one voice, collectively your value is more than individually, right? So if we bring you all together and we can create some amazing events that you own, we can generate revenue for the professional triathletes as a whole, and we can use that for programs like group insurance or athlete development for younger athletes. It's an incredibly hard sport to get into just because it's so expensive, and it honestly takes so long to really get to the top of the sport.
Right.
Retirement plan options, things like that. In order to do that, we have to have some value in terms of revenue. That's how we kind of came together. We have Mike Moritz coming on backing this through his Crank Sport Investments. We have an honest opportunity right now to use the platform of professional triathlon to elevate the entire sport. And it's pretty exciting.
I love it. And really kicking off, you really showed in 2019 the grit and the perseverance that you bring to everything that you're doing, which speaks volumes to the PTO. But tell us more about 7 weeks before Kona when you placed second. What happened?
Oh, Rob.
I have to bring up the bad stuff.
It was a tough year. Well, I'll fast forward just briefly to the beginning of 2000. Actually, let's fast forward even a little bit more. We'll set the scene for everybody. I started working with Julie Divins, a new coach, 2018, and I inverted my foot on a trail run and broke my fifth metatarsal in my right foot. And I was in a boot for over 8 weeks, 10 weeks, I think. And that really, it really hampered my entire 2018 season. fast forward to October, pulled out a great race, Kona 2018, and ended up fourth. Set what was then the American record in Kona with an 8:03, and I was super excited. I'm like, man, this is literally the best I've ever raced, and my preparations were pretty so. Like 2019 is going to be awesome. So we get charging in beginning of 19, having great sessions, end up crashing at the end of March when we were training in Australia. Crashed my bike, hit the deck going about 40 miles an hour, and broke a bunch of ribs. So all of a sudden now we're mid-March, and I can't train, I can't race. I missed Ironman Texas in May. Ironman Texas in April, which I was planning to do. And then I was hoping to do Ironman Brazil in May. Missed that, wasn't ready. Barely got to the start line at Ironman Boulder in June, and then barely got my Kona spot. I finished third. I needed to finish third to get the spot. Jeez. I was just like, whoa, man. I was resigned the fact that I was not going to race Kona in 2019. I was going backwards on the run. I started to walk. Finally, I pulled myself together and said, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, Izzy. It's like, just get to the finish line for Izzy. Who cares about Kona? And once I made that decision that I wasn't going to pull out and I was just going to get to the finish line, things started to turn around for me. Horrible race in Boulder, started to turn around. Great race in July, Santa Rosa 70.3. And then 7 weeks before Kona, I'm already in the best shape of my life. Just literally finished an awesome run. And the last step, I went down to hit stop on my watch and my Garmin. And I hit the edge of the pavement of the road, and there's about a 4-inch drop to the dirt, and I broke my foot again.
Oh my gosh.
So here I am, like 7 weeks out of the World Championship, already having gone through so much in 2019. We were swimming right afterwards. I tried to warm down. I couldn't really. I just kind of hid in the bushes.
So you were literally hiding in the bushes, not wanting to do the recovery because your foot was hurting that bad?
Yeah. So I didn't want to, hit the edge. I knew something was wrong. I didn't want to freak out Julie. So I went for a warm down and just kind of hid in the bushes. And then we were heading to the pool after that for our swim. And I drove to the gas station, bought a big bag of ice, parked outside the pool in the parking lot, and hopped in the bed of my truck, my foot on ice, and text Julie, asked her to come out to the parking lot. And, she came out and she saw me, and you could just see her face dropped, and she kind of turned white, and she just knew that this wasn't good. So she had me go to the, she's like, go get an x-ray right now. Went and got an x-ray, didn't show anything. I'm like, all right, cool. This will just be a couple days, just a sprain, or, I did something to a ligament or something like that. Well, a week later, still couldn't put any pressure on my foot. Went and got an MRI, and they're like, oh yeah, that's definitely broken. So here I am now, 6 weeks out of Kona, right? And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I went home. I think Rinny was out that night, or maybe she was doing something. So I was at home alone. I opened a really nice bottle of wine, and I said, all right, you're going to have a pity party for one night. I downed that bottle of wine myself. And I said, tomorrow you're going to figure it out. I did. I sulked for that one night. And then the next day I'm like, okay, well, let's get a plan together here. The most important thing is to always remember that you can only control what you can control, right? You can't dwell on the things that are out of your control. And at this point in time, my foot was broken. That was out of my control. I tried to put together a plan with Julie on what we could do given our limitations to try to still be ready for Kona and still become a better athlete leading into Kona. Still able to, after a little, maybe a week or so later, I was able to actually get on the bike. I just had to stay on the trainer because it was really hard for me to get out of the saddle, put any, kind of displacing force on that foot. Luckily the bone didn't displace. It was a good fracture, if you can have a good fracture. So, we did that, and my cycling actually started to get better. And then a couple of weeks later, we went to our training camp in Lawrence, Kansas, and the good folks at KU, actually, it was the track and field strength and conditioning coach, was able
go ahead
to get me set up on an Alter G, a zero gravity treadmill. So I was very slowly able to start running at if you're not familiar with a zero gravity treadmill, you can run and reduce your weight. It's got kind of a bag around you that creates pressure that lifts your body up a little bit. So you can run at half your body weight if you want to. So I started just running at, like literally half my body weight and doing a little walk jog for 10 minutes and slowly started to build it up. But, I was just doing what I could do, and I was just happy to be training at this point. And I actually started to have these really amazing runs. And it's a little, you're kind of tricking yourself because you're only, if you're running at 70-80% of your body weight now, like you're flying, right? You're not putting a lot of pressure on your feet, but you're still getting that neuromuscular recruitment and you're getting that,
Right.
all that muscle memory, and your body's learning how to run that pace and really training that. I had this weird self-confidence that I'm like, maybe I can really do something good here. I was heading to Kona 9 days out, the Friday, like a week out of the Saturday race. And I did my first run on dry land a couple days before that. It went well, and I actually ran really well. So I got excited. I had only run before the gun went off. I think I ran outside about 4 times or maybe 20 miles.
Jeez.
I was just so happy to be at the race. And I think that's something really important to remember. I've been doing Kona since 2011. Even when you're doing something that you love, when you're going through that grind all the time, it can become a challenge, and it can become more of work than a passion, right? I don't think I realized how much I really loved being there, and until it was almost taken away from me, until I almost couldn't race, was when I realized that, hey, I really want to be out here. I want to do this. Like, let me race. And I was just so grateful to be able to start the race that everything else was gravy at that point, no matter how the race went.
That's amazing. It's such a different perspective when you're doing it with that passion and purpose, and instead of feeling like a job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you had mentioned your wife, Rinny. Where did you guys meet? I've never heard this story.
We actually met in 2009 at the St. Croix 70.3. We talked about that earlier, that first big iron.
So that's why you won.
That's why I won. I think I had to impress her. We met the night before at all the athletes stayed in one neighborhood, and they had kind of a pre-race dinner for all the athletes. And I had this huge chocolate brownie with chocolate icing on it. And everybody else is eating salad, and and they're looking at me like, first of all, nobody knew who I was. It was one of my first long course races, and they're like, who is this guy over here? And then I go and have this amazing race, and at the after party, I started talking to Rinny, and she had a lead, ended up bonking and got second. And if anybody knows Rinny, she is hands down one of the best runners in the sport ever. Period. Yeah. She holds a course record in Kona for the run course record. She has the fastest 2 or 3 times there. So for her to lose a race on the run is unheard of. So kind of gave her a hard time, and joked that if she had eaten one of those big brownies, she wouldn't have bonked.
Oh, I love it. I'd never heard that story. That's a good one. And now being a dad and being a husband, how has that changed your mentality? I know you mentioned earlier when you were racing, I have Izzy, I got to just keep going. How did that change your mentality of racing now that you're part of something bigger?
It definitely put everything in perspective for me. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time, so things start to get a little tedious at some points. And when I first started racing, I just wanted to prove that I could win, right? Then I was racing just to try to, all right, I want to make this career. I'm going to get paid and get contracts. And, then that starts to happen, and you're a little more comfortable. And then at some point you're kind of like, well, why am I racing? And right. I think, when Izzy came along, it changed all of that, sort of makes you realize that, hey, it's just a sport, and you're pretty darn lucky to be doing a sport for your career. And then, we traveled as a family everywhere. I mean, Izzy I think she's been to Australia already 4 or 5 times, and she's only 2.5. So then it became this awesome family experience. We're sharing this all together. Rinny and Izzy and myself, we're going across the globe, sharing in these really cool experiences. And Izzy, she's young and she may not remember, but in the moment, she's absolutely knows what's going on. I remember a couple days after my race in Kona, we were still on the island. We're having a little vacation. And I was just on a walk with Izzy, with just the 2 of us. And she was talking about how great it was to see me coming down the finish chute with, I had the American flag, which she calls Daddy's flag. To her, it's just Daddy's flag. But she was talking about, she's like, remember the cheering and remember how excited, she thought I won, I think, but she
Hey,
like, she was almost, you
they
could,
think you're the greatest.
yeah, yeah, it was so cool. She had all this pride in her dad, and that was just really special. So, it was one of the other reasons I really fell in love with the sport again, because we were sharing it as together as a family.
I love it. I love it. And people can actually see a lot of your life and a lot of what it takes on the Tim and Rennie show, as well as they can go to timothyo'donnell.com and find out more about you. I end all my segments the exact same way. I have 3 questions, then we have a round robin, which is just rapid fire. Okay. So these 3 questions I don't give to you ahead of time because I want to make you uncomfortable.
Oh, geez. Thanks, Rob.
Hey, anything for you. This first question is, what is one thing you haven't done but is outside of your comfort zone?
Skydiving.
You've never skydived?
I never skydived, no. I had the option to go to jump school when I was at the academy, but for some reason it just didn't fit into the schedule. I think I was probably at a race or something.
You're probably lucky. Jumping into sawdust is not the greatest of things.
No, yeah.
You definitely would have had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, I know. Actually, it's probably good that I haven't done it.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe after your career's done, you and I will go skydiving.
Yeah, no, I don't think Rennie will put the kibosh on that real quick.
All right, here's the second one. What is your favorite quote and why?
Well, I'm going to give you 2.
Okay. Don't
give up the ship, which is a naval reference. And one of the original flags is hanging up at the Naval Academy. So that, to me, that's always like, just don't stop fighting, right? And then another one was something I think my swim coach said to me in high school: decide what you want to be, pay the price, and be what you want to be. I don't think it gets much simpler than that, right? You need to.
That's a great one.
You got to have the goal, you got to have the intention, and then you have to be willing to execute. And then not be afraid to be that version of yourself that you want to be.
And I think you followed that to a T after leaving the military to go and make no money initially as a triathlete. I love it. I love it. All right, this last question, here it is. If you could pick to have coffee with 3 other people, they can be alive or deceased, at a firehouse table, meaning nothing is off the table, you can ask them anything, who would it be and why?
Okay, Dave Grohl, number 1. He's the first guy, Foo Fighters, and then was the drummer for Nirvana. That guy is
that's awesome.
Coolest dude. Like, if I could meet one person dead or alive, it's going to be me and Dave Grohl. And I'd put Rennie and his wife in there too, because I think it would just be an amazing conversation.
I love it. You just like that. I mean, that was the easiest one to do.
And I heard he loves going to the Four Seasons in Kona. So I'm like, one of these days after Kona, I'm going to be there. I'm going to meet him at the bar, and we're just going to sit at the bar and talk trash and drink.
There you go, with a beautiful view.
Yeah, with a great view.
There it is. I like it. All right, here's your rapid round. I'm going to give you 2 things. All you got to tell me is which one you pick. All right, Here we go. Paper or plastic?
Paper.
Soup or salad?
Soup.
How about McDonald's or Taco Bell?
Oh, God. Definitely McDonald's. Rennie has never eaten at a Taco Bell. Can you believe that? She has never eaten at a Taco Bell.
Are you kidding me?
No.
It's chalupa night in the O'Donnell household.
I used to, when I was young and swimming in high school, I would get a 6-pack of hard tacos, a 6-pack of soft tacos. Just do a dozen.
That was my first story I ever told when I joined cross country, and our first run was a 5K, and I went down the street and we ran right in front of a Taco Bell. That was my last practice ever. I ran right in the Taco Bell and stayed. Yep, quality. All right, here we go. Camping or hotel?
Oh, hotel.
There you go. Fly or drive?
Plush robe anytime.
You're right along with me. I like that. Too much SEER school for you, right? What do you think? Fly or drive?
With Izzy, fly. Without Izzy, drive.
Or I should have put, like on a ship for you. Yeah. I should have added a third.
That would definitely be last.
Yeah. All right. Sleep in late or wake up early?
Sleep in.
There you go. Run or walk?
Run.
Partly sunny or partly cloudy?
Partly sunny.
Fire or water?
Fire.
How about porta potty or drive or run to the next physical bathroom?
Next physical bathroom.
Oh, that's one I would have picked there.
I've been in too many porta potties in my life.
Yeah, they're not plush.
They are not.
How about Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Go big or go home?
Go big.
All right. Tim O'Donnell, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Definitely best of luck in your future racing and in your future endeavors. And we'll definitely have to have you on again.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.